So, what do you do after bricking your camera? Well, you brick another one, right? To see how they actually work. So, after crying in my corner for a bit, I wrote a message to Jake, the instant camera guy, on Reddit, and he was kind enough to actually answer and give me some pointers. Now, I kind of hoped to, I don't know, get a silver bullet or something, but there are no silver bullets. Instead, he kind of confirmed my suspicion that it's a gear train problem, so something went wrong on that part. I don't really know why, because I really took great care to follow the instructions in the manual. His opinion is that the manual is kind of full of bollocks, but that was the only resource I had available to actually fix my problem, the problem with the broken gears. So, yeah, I took apart the white Polaroid and my suspicion was confirmed. The connector for the motor is broken, and I think it's this one because this is the only thing that I could find inside. And this is a screw. And there was no trace of it where it should have been. Now, if I put these two little parts together, you'll probably not be able to see it, but I can guarantee you that there is a slit in the middle, and that is the one that engages with the shaft, I think. And there's also a slit here that should engage with the spring. So this was the connector, the plastic connector that broke in half. Now, obviously, in order to take the bottom plate off, I had to remove the so-called leatherette. And this is the amount of mess the actual process of removing it produced. So this is like some sort of sand. I don't know what this material is, but it's awful. Okay, so this piece I no longer need. I'm not even going to keep it for measuring or anything, because it is simply horrendous. I don't even know how I'm going to dispose of it. Maybe I'm going to just do it like this and throw it in the bin. Alright, now please excuse the noise. I'm going to vacuum all this funky powder. Alright, so I have also pulled the motor out without desoldering anything, because that's how he does it in his videos. So I decided to actually try that method. It's a bit more finicky, at least for me, but one of the things that he told me when I described what I did to the camera, meaning gear replacement, flexiboard replacement, what else did I do? The latch replacement and whatever, all the things that I did to the camera. He said something like, wow, okay, you took the hardest path possible, meaning that it would have been easier to just swap the bottom, so the entire bottom of the camera, in order to fix the flexiboard issue. but I didn't have a replacement. I think. I mean, I would have had a replacement if I didn't mess up, like totally mess up my original SX-70, the one with the broken mirror. But back then meaning like a couple of months ago when I took it apart, I didn't know better and I just like took it apart because the bottom part of the camera was in perfect condition. It was working. So I only had to replace the mirror, and I should have waited to get another camera as a spare, or at least another camera, functional camera, open that camera up, remove the mirror, take measurements like shape, thickness, and so on, and just get a mirror, because you can go to the mirror shop and almost certainly somebody is going to help you out. But that's another topic. Anyhow, what else did I do? Well, back to my notebook. I tried to kind of read more and learn more about the actual operation of the camera. So this part is the switch functions, and switch number 1 is the power button, switch number 2 is the socket here. So when you insert a flash in this socket, it will trigger switch number 2 and put the camera in flash mode. Switch number 3 is on the gear drive, on the gear train, the forward of the two switches. So you have one switch here, one switch here. This is 3, this is 5, and you also have this one, which is 7. So this is 3. It needs to be closed because the cocking rack is cocking ram is in a forward position, so that one is closed, because normally it's closed, because normally it's opened, and when the cocking ram moves forward, it closes this one, and also closes switch number 5, which is in the back and is normally opened when the cocking ram is in the back position, in the backward position. Kind of funky. Okay, and this is what the switch actually does. So when the exposure sequence begins, because this is all about the exposure sequence, switch number 3 opens, it actuates a delay of 40 milliseconds, enough for the mirror to stop bouncing, and then lets the exposure to start. At the end of the exposure, when the Fresnel carrier lowers into the viewing position, the recock arm moves back, because it's moved back by the recock gear or cam, and it closes both switch number 3 and switch number 5. Then the switch number 4 is somewhere around here, so it's in the shutter part, and it's used to lower the current used by the solenoid of the shutter, so it puts it in like a low power mode. It's of no importance for me right now. Number 5, that is normally closed at the beginning of the exposure cycle. When opened, removes power from the motor, applying dynamic braking voltage, whatever that means. And the ECM, so the electronic control module that's in the shutter assembly, will continue to the exposure cycle, because it needs to keep the shutter open for the amount of time needed for the correct exposure. And after the Fresnel carrier returns to the viewing position, the recock ram closes switch number 5, just as it did with the switch number 3, and the camera cycle stops. Switch number 6 closed when camera is extended is this one. All right. Switch number 7 is this one, so it's linked to the release lever here, and they are both in series, so both must be closed in order for the camera to have power. So when the camera is flat like this, so when the camera is flat, the switch is open, so there's no power. When the front door, that it's something around here, doesn't matter. So when this part is closed, the switch number 7 is opened. So you basically need to have this door closed and the camera extended in order for both switches to be closed, so current can flow around and move things around. Okay, next we have switch number 8, which is opened by the counter wheel, so it's somewhere here, after the dark slide has been ejected, and it will remain open until the cartridge is removed. And switch number 9, which is another one around this part of the camera, will close when the counter reaches 0, and that will tell the ECM to disallow flash usage. So even if you keep clicking afterwards and you no longer have any pictures inside the film pack, the camera will no longer use flash, because it used sort of flash thing that was mounted here, and it had a number of flashes of bulbs available. So in order not to waste the flash bulbs, switch number 9 cuts the usage of flash. So this is the explanation of the switches, which probably will come in handy when I am going to start the debugging process. This is the white one, and this is the page from that manual that talks about the function sequence. So basically it's a step-by-step explanation of the entire function sequence, starting from the moment when you open the camera, push the button, and what happens, what thing moves where, and how they all relate to one another. I didn't transcribe it into my agenda because it's pointless. I'm going to just print this page if I need it, and the entire thing is on this one page, and it goes up to here, to number 10, because after number 10, where the recock RAM closes S5 to cause the ECM to shut off and dynamically brake the drive motor, to 7, to 8, to 9. The next paragraph, to 10, talks about what happens if you have a flash attached. I don't care about flash right now, so this will be all that I need for the time being. Okay, back to my white camera. So I took it apart, meaning the bottom plate, because I really wanted to see how things are meshing up and how each of the gears is positioned in relation to the other gears and to some fixed landmark like this in various moments of operation. So basically I wanted to see how I could recreate this state into my other camera. It has this pesky flex PCB, okay, like the other one had, and it does have quite a lot of signs of oxidation, that's it. I don't have another paper flexi PCB, so I'll need to stick with this one. What else did I do? Well, I took out the motor and I tried to um, actually I didn't try, I actually did it. I reconditioned it, but initially I tried to open it up with without completely removing it, so without desoldering those points, and I kind of managed to do that. The problem was putting it back together, and because inside the case, so inside the metal part of the motor, there are two magnets. When you are trying to get the rotor through the space or between those two magnets, obviously your rotor will end up being attracted to one side or the other side, and that means that you risk pulling the rotor, that shiny part that no the part that you need to shine to remove oxidation, that spins between the brushes. That part can be pulled out of the socket, out of the exit hole, and when you are trying to close the two halves, what happens is that that part will catch on the brushes and actually rip them off their flexible supports. All right, and unfortunately that happened in this case. Um, and because I didn't have, actually I did have a spare motor that had the same problem. One of the brushes was even chipped. I decided to actually glue back the little brush, the little graphite, I think it's graphite, brush to that elastic support. And I used plain old super glue. It seems to work, so that is okay, but it shouldn't have happened. My lack of experience, my me not knowing how to approach things, yeah, that led to this happening. And because that happened, I had to actually desolder, and desoldering was not an issue this time. Resoldering was awful. So this is a bloody mess. It looks like shit, but it's functional, I suppose, and that's the best I can do. This kind of board, it gives you pretty much no chance, so you gotta get it right from the first go, or otherwise it will turn to a mess. All right, so right now, where's my cartridge? Right now the camera kind of works. Sometimes it spits out 2 frames, sometimes just one, so probably a lot of cleaning is due. And sometimes I need to really push the cartridge or the film pack in order to fire it up. I suppose some electrical contacts are old, but so far so good. Therefore, the plan is simple with this one. Number one, don't mess it up. This is my last option to have a functional Polaroid. Number two, keep it simple. So I'm not going to do anything that is not required. Given the fact that there is a ton of dust inside, I will open it completely. So it will go through the usual removal of shutter assembly and bellow part hopefully is the same as the other one, meaning that I have those two screws here that allow me to actually separate the two halves. But if not, that's not a problem. You can remove those hinges and turn it over. All right. What else? I think that's it for this one. Obviously a reskin because this one is awful. And obviously I will remove all these leatherettes before cleaning anything inside. But that's enough for the white SX-70. Now let me tell you what kind of stupid stuff I did with the other one, because it begins to be interesting. Well, first of all, let me see where I can start. Well, first of all, I opened this thing again because I found out that the two halves of the split screen were not aligning at infinity. So it was focusing beyond infinity. I honestly don't know if that's the way the camera was before I started working on it, or I simply missed the mark when I made that little sticker with the line. And that's why I said at some point that I should have marked a little dot or something on the frame as well, so I can have two corresponding points, not just one line that should point at 6 o'clock, because the notion of 6 o'clock is perhaps broader than the distance between two teeth, so things can happen. But the fix for this is easy. I had to remove this from the camera so I could remove the front plate. I got this gear out, got this entire assembly back on the camera, and looked out of my window at a very distant building that's something like 300-400 meters away, and I rotated these elements of the front lens element until the two halves were aligned, and then I placed a little dot just in case and replaced the gear. It's that easy. I don't think you can do any kind of adjustment regarding the SX-70 that has the broken mirror, because the camera is in pieces now, had a possible issue. I'm saying possible because I can't rule out user error, but in at least a couple of photos, because I took in total something like 5 before it broke. In a couple of those 5 photos, I felt it was back focusing. So I had a close-up subject and the focus was something like maybe 20 centimeters behind, maybe. And that is on a camera that goes to f8, right? I think f8 is the widest aperture. Now, being an SLR, if the lens overshoots infinity, it's not a problem per se, because what you see is what you get, right? So, okay, if you overshoot infinity, you'll have a blurry image, but you can focus a little bit back to get an infinity focused shot. The idea is that if you see it in focus in the viewfinder, you should see it in focus in the picture. It was not, I think, my case. So I'm not aware of any method that could resolve that. I mean, unlike I don't know, a classic SLR, a classic film SLR, where you have the angle of the mirror, you have the height of the focusing screen, and all these things add up to the precise match between the image projected on the focusing screen and the image projected on the film. All right. And now that I think of the camera, or I think about the design of the camera, it is possible that two of the three glue points, mounting points of that mirror that broke were already uh, ruptured. So the mirror was hanging a bit down, and that would quite radically change the light path. So, and I also remember clearly that I really struggled focusing because it only had one point where I could see both halves of the split circle, which is not correct. And I also had the same thing happening to me with this one at some point when I was trying to see why it's not working correctly, when I found out that when inserting a cartridge of film, a pack of film, it would spin a bit and then stop. And at that point where the camera stopped, the image in the viewfinder looked a bit dim and I could barely see both halves of the split circle. And that was because the mirror, so the Fresnel carrier, lifted just a bit. So basically, uh, the Fresnel position changed, so the light path changed, and therefore the image that I could see in the viewfinder was altered. And that's why I think the mirror was hanging inside somehow, and that's why it was I was back focusing. Actually, I was front focusing and whatever. Okay, this is just a side note and the fix for this particular issue. Now I'm going to put this one. No, I'm not going to put it back yet because I am all in with this camera. So it's like my way or the highway. I broke it already. What else can happen? So I'm going to make the 600 film mod because why not? I don't know if it will matter anyway. Meaning if I can get the camera out of this anyway. What was happening in my case? So I was putting the pack of film inside. The motor would spin a bit and then stop. It would stop like an not overdrive, overload, like an overload motor. But I didn't figure it out. I didn't realize what was happening until I saw the other one. So when I opened the other camera and got the pack of film inside, I saw this white gear, or yellow in this case, I saw it spinning counterclockwise, if I remember correctly. Or was it clockwise? In any case, it was spinning the other way that this one was, because I could see it trying to move a bit and then stop. It was moving like, yeah, this was moving clockwise and the other one was moving counterclockwise. And I was like, what is going on? How is this possible? Obviously, my next step was to reverse the polarity on the motor. And that fixed it, partially. It fixed it, meaning that it would start cycling correctly. Sometimes it would spit out the dark slide, sometimes it would not. But most often than not, it wouldn't spit the dark slide out. Instead, it would make no. I think it was spitting the dark slide, but it was not completing the cycle. So the mirror always remained a bit up. The Fresnel carrier a bit up. I might be confusing things in this story, but they all happened, but I'm not really sure which thing happened in which particular moment. It's not really relevant anyway. Um, so I, after a couple of taking the pack out, putting the pack back in, and so on, it kind of self fixed itself. It kind of fixed itself, meaning it kind of resetted itself. And I thought, okay, wow, step forward, we are good to go. But it wasn't really like that, because the shutter would stop with the blades closed. I realized that when I was looking through the viewfinder and I didn't see anything. And as soon as I would take the film pack out, I would see something. And obviously I thought the Fresnel carrier was up, and then it would go down when I would take the film pack. That didn't make any sense. And then I noticed that the shutter blades were closed. So something was not right, and in fact it was not completing its cycle. I checked with the other one, and indeed the initial cycle also means closing the shutter and then opening it up again. And also I realized that sometimes it would work okay. I mean, it would open the shutter if I would slowly press on this latch, which kind of made no sense to me, because you need to press the latch all the way down in order for that contact to open. Actually, the contact is already opened, but if it were closed, when the front door is closed, it would probably open as soon as you would press this button. I'm not really sure. Anyway, it had a very, very strange behavior. And after a couple more attempts of going through the cycle, at some point it stopped working altogether. I mean, it would no longer complete even that partial cycle, because this yellow gear would not turn anymore. And yes, that means some teeth have been stripped, unfortunately, again. And I am almost certain that this happened because the motor turned the wrong way for so long. Why did it turn the wrong way? Because stupid me, you see there's some text, code or something. That should be here. In this case, it's here. But I do remember that that text was visible something like this or here. So I think it either has only this text, or it has this one and another one on the opposite side from this side. And that's because I was really sure that it doesn't matter how you put it back, because the polarity would only be given by these contacts. So the brushes were connected correctly, but apparently the magnets need to be in the correct orientation. It still doesn't really make a lot of sense in my head, but I didn't look it up on the internet and see how these things work, so I don't know. Anyway, this is my little improvisation that allowed me to see that it works correctly now. And I will take it off, switch it again, and resolder the connections, and then I will need to desolder these 6 so I can bend the flexi board like this, and remove again the gear train, see which of the gears is messed up. If I'm lucky, I'll only need to replace that gear, but I have a feeling that the messed up gear is this one, the one that's riveted. And if that's the case, my plan is to actually fix it, because I don't have another choice. I don't have a replacement, and I would end up basically with 2 gear train chassis that both have broken gears. I do have the other gears. I have probably a couple of each in good condition, but not this one. Now, I basically, or at the basic level, I know how to fix a gear like this. I don't know if it will hold. I could probably 3D print one, because it's just a gear, so it has a certain thickness. It has a shoulder and a number of teeth, so you could recreate the gear. It wouldn't be that difficult, but the fact that it's riveted is killing me. And what I am planning to do, I am planning to drill a hole right through this shaft. Unfortunately, I have no idea what kind of diameter I would need. So I have these fine drill bits, so 0.3, 0.5, this is a 0.8 bit drill bit, and I also have these things that I can use to tap a new hole. I mean, to make a hole and tap it for a screw. I'm not really sure. I mean, it's so small that I fear this 1 mm tap is too large. It might work. And I don't know if I have a screw that is so small, but that's my only chance. The idea is that after drilling and tapping, I would cut the end of this rivet, remove the gear, fix the gear, and use the shaft with the repaired gear, but instead of riveting it here, I would screw, so I would screw it in place. I don't know if it's feasible, but fixing this gear in place is probably even more difficult. I could try. I could try, why not? And I'm going to use an epoxy paste that hardens quite strongly, and try to fix it. If I don't, the camera is bricked, unless I find a donor, which I'm probably not going to find very soon. If I can do it, then I might be able to save the camera, and it will be a new skill acquired, because I've never done such repairs, but I'm confident that I can kind of pull it off. And the third option would be to make another gear, a 3D printed one, and design the shaft in such a way that it's already designed to be screwed in. So maybe I would have to enlarge this hole and then use no, I can't. No, actually I can enlarge the hole because I don't need to replicate the gear, meaning the diameter of the shoulder doesn't have to be the same. It can be almost as wide as the gear itself, as long as the gear, the position, the height and the teeth are all correct. It would still mesh with the other gears, right? So then I can afford a much thicker um, post that would allow for a regular screw to go in and keep the post on the bloody assembly. So yeah, that's the plan. So on one hand I want to fix this one, on the other hand I want to CLA the white one, and if I can fix the problem with this gear, then I would have another a spare assembly in case I stumble upon an SX-70 with a broken set of gears at some point. Okay, so just talking today, not much action, but that's yeah, that's where I'm at now, and hopefully in the next episode I can present a working white SX-70 because that's easier to fix right now. And worst case scenario, that will be the end of the series, because if I can't advance past this point, then the silver one will go into hiding for a while until I get what I need to fix it. Okay, I guess I'll see you next time. Cheers.